Good morning and welcome to BBOC Live. This is the Week 3 college football betting preview. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm Stucky, and joining me, as always, are my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Colin Wilson, Mike Calabrese, and of course, the one and only Mr. Brett McMurphy. Have a lot to get to today. We will talk a little Alabama, Wisconsin in just a moment. We'll give both of our best bets. We'll even give out a little round robin underdog moneyline parlay and get Mr. Johnny Manziel's Hail Mary pick of the week to finish up the show. Quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, this will be the last week. This will be on the Action Network YouTube channel. Moving forward, it'll just be on the BBOC YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe there. Hit that like button if you're watching. It really helps us out. Do appreciate that. And before we get started here, quick ad read. If you want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. And use code BBOC20 at sign up. One more time, that's BBOC20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, before we dive into our first best bets, on the surface, it's not the sexiest college football slate, but as I always say, never underestimate this sport. It tends to just give us chaos when you least expect it. So I'll put you guys all on the spot here. Before we get to our first best bets, give me a double-digit dog that you think can win outright today. Brad, I'll start with you.
Tulane Green Wave. Face a depleted Oklahoma offensive line. OU may be peeking ahead to next week against Tennessee.
Yeah, we'll see if Oklahoma can get those offensive line issues cleaned up. Also injuries at wide receiver, and the run game hasn't been able to get going. Jackson Arnold hasn't looked right. A lot of that has to do with everything that's going on around him. And Tulane definitely showed well last week against Kansas State, who took Arizona out to the woodshed last night. Calabrese, how about you?
Weird things happen in Northwest Texas, so I can go see the Mean Green upsetting a depleted Texas Tech team offensively. They got the air raid, bringing it back, a Mike Leach protege into Lubbock. Stranger things have happened, and this Tech defense, there is no bottom. They're giving up over 515 yards per game, and they already played an FCS school. So in a shootout, I'll go take UNC here.
Colin?
Well, I wanted to go Wyoming, but they dipped below 10, so they're no longer double digits. I really don't have the stones in me to take Colgate over Akron, so I'm going to say Tulsa is going to give Oklahoma State a run for their money at home today. You and I have talked about Kirk Francis for Tulsa. This guy has shown up out of nowhere. He's got 7 big-time throws already, so I think Tulsa's legit and is going to cover and has a shot today in a really soft spot for Oklahoma State's schedule.
Brett, any thoughts there?
Let's see. Every place Colin has lived in the last 3 years has lost Oklahoma State. So I guess add Tulsa to the list today.
All right, that'll help kick us off at noon. My answer will be my first best bet. So let's get to our best bets. So far, Colin and I pulling the weight at 4-1 each. Calabrese and McMurphy, this is your week to get hot. I'm going to start things off. Can you read this shirt, what it says? Ponzi scheme. I'm back. I've woken up from my hypnosis, and no, we are not backing Vanderbilt anymore. I am back on the fade train of Pavia. I'm going with Georgia State here. Still find a 10 out there. I look, Vanderbilt profiles is sort of like a triple option team. They're not going to be a good double-digit favorite. I will look to back them as a double-digit dog in SEC play, just because of their style. Clock's going to be speeding throughout. This is just too rich here compared to what I project this line at. I don't think Georgia State is as bad as the market presumes. Look, they played Georgia Tech really tough for the first 3 quarters. They just couldn't score inside the 5-yard line. Otherwise, that game could have been tied going into the fourth quarter. Georgia Tech 2 fourth down touchdowns. Georgia State doesn't score on 1st and goal at the 1. has to settle for a field goal, doesn't score inside the 5 again. So I think this team is kind of ahead of where many have anticipated. I like their coaching staff. I like their quarterback, Christian Bayer. I think this game stays close. Vandy getting a little bit too much love. We're fading the Ponzi scheme, baby. Colin, where are you going?
We're going to have to get into a Jerry Kill tattoo bet by the end of the season because you're in the club, you're out of the club, can't figure it out. All right, I'm going to go to an SEC matchup. I'm going to take the Gators. I'm going to take Florida plus 3.5. The news seems to be getting worse for Texas A&M, a team that's already struggled this year. Quarterback Connor Weigman is going to be a game-time decision here for Texas A&M. That's not good against a Florida defense that has consistent issues against the pass. They are much better against the run. Florida cannot create a pass rush. They're not very good at stopping explosives through the air, and Texas A&M desperately needed a passer in the backfield. They could pivot off. The Aggies pivot off to Marcel Reed. I do like him as a quarterback. He runs the RPO, something Connor Weigman can't do, and that matches the style of what offensive coordinator Colin Klein wants. But the first start of your career as a freshman happening in Gainesville in the swamp, that's going to be really tough. And the Florida's defense right now, they're top 40 in line yards and stuff rate, so they're kind of better suited to face their RPO than they are a passing quarterback. And Florida's offense just has no resistance to explosive plays today. Texas A&M has not proved that they can stop this offense. They're near dead last against rush explosives. Chunk passes and rushing attempts are going to be the name of the game for Florida so far this season. That's how they've scored so far. That's what's going to happen here in this game. So give me Florida plus 3.5 in the Swamp.
Let's go to Brett. Where are you going?
USF and Southern Miss. This is an old Conference USA rivalry. Visitors to Southern Miss affectionately call it Hadesburg for a reason. Look, Southern Miss offense is one of the worst in the country. They are the third worst in the nation on average yards to go on third down, basically more than 9 yards to go every third down. You don't have a lot of success that way. They were blanked by Kentucky. The game was cut short. They're awful. The Bulls, incredible offense. They're going under Golish. They are the much better team. However, they are in a monster scheduling sandwich here. Just went to Alabama. Miami comes to Tampa next week. I'm going contrarian here. The line's up to 12. Heck, it may be up to 14 by kickoff. Give me the Golden Eagles and the points. I'll hold my nose. Hope they can keep it within 2 touchdowns.
Brett playing the spot here. I was confused at first. I was like, all right, he said Southern Miss, and then it sounded like you were starting to build a case for South Florida, trusting the spot here. And if there is one thing Brett knows, it is his Bulls. Calabrese, where are you going?
I'm going to go over 70 in that game I mentioned at the top between North Texas and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is not protecting their defense, which I mentioned is horrible. They're playing at a breakneck pace, 88 plays per game, and that's going to hang this defense out to dry in just relentless heat out in Lubbock. The heat index is going to be over 100 for this game, and it always pays to check the wind report when it comes to a game in Lubbock because it can wreak havoc with the passing attacks. It's not going to spike over 15 miles per hour in terms of gusts until about an hour after this game. So I think that is going to be good news for both Morton and Chandler Morris, UNT's quarterback, who already has 9 touchdowns through 2 weeks. His problem has been fitting into a system and staying healthy. This air raid is perfect for him. He's clearly healthy through 2 weeks. And defensively on the other side of it, North Texas, they played an FCS school last week, but in week 1, Gio Lopez and that South Alabama offense were explosive. They scored 38 points in a game that hit 90. Lopez finishes with a school record for total yardage. So there's no defense on either side here. I think this is going to be an absolute track meet. I know that's 70 in a year in which a lot of unders have been cashing. In G5 land, unders have cashed at over a 60% clip through 2.5 weeks so far, but don't be scared away by this number. I think this game's played in the 80s.
Yeah, you're starting to see some more, like 2 deep prevent explosive plays, which does give me a little bit of pause with these high totals because you need to cash in. You need touchdowns. So that's what you're going to be looking for there, but there should be a lot of fireworks. And speaking of South Alabama, you mentioned, did you see that game the other night? They won 87 to 10, I think, in a game that they had to shorten the fourth quarter to 6 minutes. This has happened a lot this year. We saw it with Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at like some of these huge favorites against really bad teams, really bad FCS, you might be better off looking at first half because of the risk of these games getting shortened and not going 55 minutes, which you need for action. All right, good stuff there. Let's move on to our marquee game of the day between Alabama and Wisconsin, which will kick off in a little over an hour in Madison. Not often you see Wisconsin this big of a home favorite. I think the last time that they were this big of a home underdog, was back in 2005 against Ohio State. They were catching 14.5. They did cover, lost by 14. Wisconsin has lost 11 straight as a double-digit home underdog outright over the past 30 years. Before we share our thoughts in this game, let's kick it to a conversation that I had with Johnny Manziel earlier this week on the state of the Alabama offensive line. Can you offer any insight into what it's like going into a game where you know that your offensive line might struggle, or you know that there might be some issues up front?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of a weird time when you're shuffling some guys around, especially from the quarterback position, having, some different faces and things like that. But, it comes down to the unit and cohesiveness. I think there is a lot of things in a week that you can fix. And Alabama is usually a team that gets down to the bottom of those and fixes things really fast. So a lot of it comes down to just communication, getting time throughout the week to really get in the meeting rooms, make sure you're going over things and make sure they're all on the same page, because it really starts, up front each and every week.
Yeah, I think the offensive line had 8 penalties in the game. So we'll see if Alabama can get that cleaned up in what should be a raucous environment. But they are favorites of over 2 touchdowns here. Wisconsin offense, they're trying to go air raid, which doesn't make much sense to me in Wisconsin with that weather and how their identity. Wisconsin just like run the ball, Big Ten. I'm not sure if it's going to work. So there's definitely questions with their offense here. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like Alabama by a lot. I think this is a chance for them to come back and really they've struggled a little bit throughout the season. And really, I think even last week, they were looking a little iffy. So I think this is a week they get things cleaned up and they'll cover outright. Tyler Van Dyke in this passing attack, as you talked about a little bit, they're going up against an Alabama secondary who's very prepared and very, aggressive in the back end of that defense. I think this is a game where Alabama comes out, Jalen Monroe and the rest of this offense clean things up and come out and really just put it to Wisconsin. Obviously, tough going on the road in this environment, but I like Alabama in this one.
All right, thanks, Johnny. So let's get to our thoughts on this game. I like Wisconsin here. I project it lower. I show value on the Badgers. Like I just mentioned, Alabama offensive line, we'll see how healthy they are and what that continuity looks like. But they also have issues in their secondary. And you might not realize it by looking at some of the stats, but I watched the first 2 games, and there's wide open guys running up and down the field. South Florida, USF, speaking of USF, they were down 8 in the fourth quarter at Alabama. They had multiple chances of hitting huge explosive pass plays, guys running wide open down the field that Brown just missed. They hit some of those. Bama could have went down at home. So they have young kids at corner, and Jackson, the USC transfer, are all struggling. So this secondary, I think, is vulnerable. Can Van Dyke take advantage? I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence in him. I also don't have a ton of confidence in the Wisconsin defensive line. It's not their strong suit, and they lost their best player up front in Thompson. But still, when it comes down to it, this line, I think, is just a bit too high. I really want I'm going to play it regardless. I'll play it small at 16.5. Look for live more at 17 or better. It did get to 17.5 for a minute or two, and I know that because I was in the shower and I tried to run out to bet it and text some people, and I stubbed my toe. I went down to the ground, stubbed my toe so hard it still hurts, and then I got up and it was already back down to 16.5. So I missed the 17.5. Maybe it flickers back here before it kicked, but I think this line is too high. It's basically what it boils down to. Colin, what are your thoughts here?
I guess I'm the only one that takes my phone to the shower in a Ziploc bag. You got to get that number. No, I like Wisconsin too, but I like them in the first half. Alabama did figure things out in the fourth quarter last week, and you can expect some sort of burst whenever the coaching staff gets their changes in. No doubt Kalen DeBoer is going to find something at halftime, but first half, 9+9.5 for Wisconsin. The Alabama offensive line is going to play in a very hostile environment up in the Big Ten, and they're just not getting it done. stuff rate, line yards, pass blocking, all of these numbers are 95th or worse so far. And these are against defenses of South Florida and Western Kentucky. Alabama's offense is also 64th in creating a quality drive. You might say, what's a quality drive? Well, did you score? Did you go 50 yards? Did you have 10 plays? Alabama just had 14 points through 3 quarters against South Florida. They cannot generate a methodical drive. They can't get into scoring position and convert. And the Alabama defense has troubles against the rush. Zero expectations that the Badgers here are going to be able to throw the ball. They cannot create uncontested catches, so they're going to have to run the ball. But Bama's defense is top 20 in everything except for stats like line yards, and their stuff rate's even 36th. The ground game is the Badgers' path. I think that's going to keep it slow in the first half, hostile environment. Alabama might not figure it out till late. Give me the +9.5 on the Badgers on the first half.
Yes, Colin, I did have my phone, but I was trying to. It was at the end of my. That's how do you think I got the notification? But I was just running out. I was going to make some text and put the bet in, so I ended my shower. Yes, I have my phone up on this little shelf thing at all times during the football season. You can't move away from the screen or notifications from the Action Network app at any time during the week. You never know when that line you're waiting for is going to pop. Brett, you are against this here. You like the Tide. No shock.
If this week's slate of games was not bad enough, I can speak for all of America that we are disgusted that we have to think of the image of Stuckey and Colin getting out of the shower. So I want to apologize to everybody that's still with us.
We'll put a parental advisory needed next week.
Yeah, NSFW, whatever it is. Look, this is a rare non-conference road trip for Bama. Only the 4th true non-SEC road game in the last 18 years. First time in Big Ten country since 2011. Yeah, Colin's right. You're right too, Stuck. Alabama has not done much offensively. I'm not concerned. Everyone talked about the USF game being a revenge game or something. They didn't care about the USF game. They've been looking at this game since the start of the season. This is a big game for DeBoer. And look, you look at Wisconsin. They have not been impressive in 2 wins against Western Michigan and South Dakota. They won each game by 14 points. I think Alabama comes out and shows itself in this game. I think Wisconsin is kind of pedestrian on offense, and that'll bite them against a superior Alabama defense. Give me Alabama -16, and give me no mentions of Colin and Stuckey in the shower again, -1 billion.
Calabrese, you are also looking at Alabama here, but if we look at just our records this year, this is a good sign for Colin and I. Calabrese, but you're going with Alabama.
Well, first of all, kudos to you for your integrity. I cover a lot of the G5. They don't have to publish their injury reports. You're coming in questionable with turf toe, so I like that you're giving us a heads up there. I think we're not making a big enough deal out of Caden Proctor coming back because it's huge. He gets injured in the opener in warmups, so they didn't have fall camp to prepare for all the shuffling that they needed to do. He comes back at left tackle. He's going to anchor this line, give them stability, and that's just going to give Milroe more time in the pocket. Despite playing with that chopped up offensive line, they've still hit 6 plays of 40+ yards from scrimmage this year. That's second most in the entire country. And we know DeBoer can scheme up big plays, whether it's spreading out the defense to hit big running plays or to go downfield to guys like Ryan Williams. But let's talk about the Wisconsin offense for a second. Yes, this is a lot of points, but can they score? In their last 7 home games of this dairy raid offense, they've averaged just 17 points per game at Camp Randall, and that's against teams like Rutgers, Nebraska, Western Michigan, South Dakota. This is a dink and dunk offense, and Tyler Van Dyke, I think it's just a question of the scheme because he has to throw underneath constantly, 6.4 yards per attempt. I think if Alabama gets out early and they're forced to abandon that running game and a lot of the underneath throws, I think he's going to put the ball in danger in this game. And yes, Alabama left some people open against South Florida, but let's look at those 2 quarterbacks. TJ Finley and Byron Brown have over 10,000 career passing yards. Even with some blown assignments, they averaged under 100 yards through the air per game in those first 2. So I think Alabama still has more to go in terms of, revving their engine up and playing their A-level football. So I agree with Brett. I think this is the game that they circled, and with health on the offensive line, I think Milroe is going to have a big one.
TJ Finley's terrible. Come on. But I mean, Brown, he makes those throws usually, and he just missed them. I think there was like 4 of them, wide open guys. Could have been 60, 70, 80-yard touchdowns throughout that game, and they just missed them. We'll see if Van Dyke can hit them. You're not asking a lot of Brown to hit those guys. He just simply came up short. But Van Dyke's going to have to make some throws in this game. we'll see if he can do that. We'll also see if, like, was Wisconsin holding anything back on offense? Because you're right, it does not look good. Now, they have played 2 inferior opponents. They knew they were playing Alabama in week 3, one of the most important games of the season. Do we see some more explosiveness from that offense? Haven't seen much so far. But let's move on to our round robin underdog moneyline parlay. Colin and I will give 5 picks. Colin gives 3, I give 2. Colin, start us off with the anchor.
Yeah, we always like to take a small favorite on the money line. We're going to start with Indiana here, traveling out to UCLA. And listen, good defense travels, and Cignetti has replicated the havoc defense of James Madison in Indiana with the Hoosiers. That is going to travel out to UCLA. They're in LA, in case you didn't know. But UCLA is right now outside the top 100 in havoc allowed. They have not been able to have any stability in the backfield. Worst rushing attack in the nation. This just has tackles for loss, sacks, pressures written all over it for Indiana. So let's start with the Hoosiers.
I'm going to go with a game you already talked about and go with Florida. There's just a lot of uncertainty in this game. Texas A&M hasn't won a road game in years. Quarterback uncertainty, injuries all over. We just don't know how good or bad these teams are, right? Like Texas A&M, they both played FCS teams last week, so it wasn't a great data point. Florida got blown up by Miami, but maybe that had more to do with Miami being really, really good. And then Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame at home, and then you see Notre Dame come home and lose to Northern Illinois. So a lot of uncertainty here, which I like. So let's go with the Gators.
Yeah, I'm going to pivot over to Miami of Ohio taking on Cincinnati, and poor Cincinnati. They allowed 15 unanswered points in the fourth quarter last week to lose by 1. Now they got to dust themselves off. You would think they would be motivated for this game against Miami of Ohio, a great rivalry there locally, but they have Big 12 play next week. So it is an overlooked spot for Cincinnati here. And the game is just circled on the Redhawks calendar every single year. And you're going to give me points in Yager Stadium. Don't want them. I think the Redhawks can win outright.
Yeah, Miami definitely will try to ugly this game up, and we'll see how Cincy comes out and responds after somehow blowing that lead last week. I'm going to go next with Colorado State. I think there's just a lot of variance in this game. Should be a shootout. I think last year there was close to 95 total pass attempts in a game. Colorado State should have won. They should. It was a thriller. I'm hoping Torrey Horton goes. He is questionable. He's obviously critical to Colorado State's offensive attack, which is, if I knew he was playing, I would take the points here. But instead, I prefer them to use them on the money line or in a round robin. And we just know who Colorado is. Like, bad offensive line, bad defense, can't run it. Yeah, they're going to have success throwing the ball, but so can Colorado State. So, and look, where is Colorado mentally? This could all blow up quick with everything that's going on in the locker room. Shedeur calling out his offensive line. So I like the Rams here.
Yeah, and we'll be here for it. We're going to end this up with Purdue, the Boilermakers. Stuck, you and I talked about this on the podcast. What is the bottom for Notre Dame right now? Where are they mentally? They're saying all the right things, but that doesn't mean you're going to come out and execute after the kind of performance you had against Northern Illinois, where you were absolutely dominated in the box score by a MAC team on your home field. Hudson Card has improved running this offense. I know it's a 1-game sample against Indiana State, but there were no hiccups there whatsoever. So you have an improving Purdue team in the second year of their head coach, Ryan Walters, who knows Notre Dame pretty well, and Notre Dame, who is just free falling right now. So the market says Purdue has an absolute shot to win this game. Money is piling in on Notre Dame, and that number just keeps sinking. Let's go Boilermakers here to get an upset.
Let's get some spoiler makers. So there you have it. Indiana, Florida, Miami of Ohio, Colorado State, and Purdue. Before we get out of here, we do have to give our second best bets before we'll kick it to Manziel for his Hail Mary pick of the week. I will kick things off, and we're heading out west to Laradice with the Pokes. I'm going with Wyoming against BYU. I think this is too many points. I think this is the bottom for Wyoming. It's also a bad spot for BYU coming off that upset win over SMU. Kansas State next week, traveling to a tough place to play. I also, if you look back at Retzlaff, BYU's quarterback's numbers haven't been overly impressive. I think last week's upset said more about SMU than it did about BYU. Wyoming, admittedly, has looked horrendous. They're off to an 0-2 start. They got blown out by Arizona State, who has improved, and then they lost at home to Idaho, good FCS team. they haven't looked great. Evan Swoboda, their quarterback, has looked awful, but head coach came out this week and said they're going to run him more this week, which they need to do, play to his strengths. And that's an area where BYU's defense is vulnerable against running quarterbacks. They also should get their best weapon back because their weapons have been lacking over their first two games. Should get one of their star safeties back. So should look like a better overall unit. And this is just too good of a spot for me to pass up in Laradice. We're going with the Pokes. Colin, where are you going for your second best bet?
Well, let's make this a Mountain West segment. I'm going to go Hawaii +4 on the road, traveling to the state of Texas against Sam Houston and the Rainbow Warriors defensive havoc versus a very shaky Sam Houston offense is going to play out here. Hawaii dominated UCLA at the point of attack on defense. They now rank 12th in defensive havoc, and that's all thanks to a whole bunch of pass breakups, interceptions, and tackles for loss. You look at Sam Houston right now, they're 122nd in offensive havoc allowed. They're bottom 15 in offensive momentum killer, which means they have penalties. They do things that kind of stunt their own drives on offensive possessions. And that's going to be great news for Timmy Chang, who is coming off of a bye week, leaving the island and coming to the mainland. Well, does he know how to use his bye week? That's important with coaches. And I would say that he does, because the last time Timmy Chang had a bye week and came to the mainland was 2 years ago against San Diego State. Hawaii was 23.5-point underdogs, nearly won the game outright. They were very prepared. And if you looking for motivation for Hawaii here, their key players on both sides of the ball are all Texas natives. Quarterback Braden Shager, wide receiver Pofel Ashlock. They are both Texas high school products and have made it very clear that this is a huge game to them. So Hawaii +4, Rainbow Warriors. I can't wait till they get back to the island. We get some late night betting, but we'll have to settle for this week.
Go Bows. Brett, where are you going for your second best bet?
Kind of what I mentioned at the top of the show. I like Tulane getting 13. Look, Oklahoma was down to their fourth string center last week against Houston. That's not going to get corrected in 1 week. Tulane comes in off a very disappointing loss to Kansas State. They outgained the Wildcats by over 100 yards. They should have won that game, and that looks even more impressive when we see what Kansas State did to Arizona last night. Ultimately, I think the combination of Oklahoma's injuries and their very suspect offense, which is surprising to a lot of people in Norman, with the combination of Josh Heupel, the last Oklahoma quarterback to win a Heisman Trophy. He brings the Vols to Norman next week, maybe a little peek ahead. They can't afford to peek ahead. This is a solid Tulane squad. I think this goes down to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might have been just tricked a bit by Oklahoma's opening week performance against Temple. Temple is horrendous. We saw that last week again against Navy, much to my chagrin.
But Temple had like 12 turnovers in the
game. And Temple, every play, Temple would just fumble the ball. I mean, even on punts, they couldn't hang on to the ball, just gifting points away to Oklahoma. So yeah, that offense definitely has more issues than it may have appeared in that opener. Then obviously we saw it last week against Houston. Mike, where are you going for your final best bet?
Let's go Shula Bowl down to South Florida. FIU catching 4. I liked it at 6. I still like it at 4 because Cam Fancher remains the starting quarterback for FAU. He checks in 127th in ESPN's QBR metric, and I can tell you, having watched both of his games thus far this season, it's deserved because not only is he really struggling in the pocket, being outside the pocket, scrambling, trying to create plays, he has no playmakers around him. This team is dudeless. There is no one. There's no Larry McCammon the thirds. There's no LeJontay Westers. There's no one to bail this guy out. So they just keep putting the ball in his hands. He had 37 pass attempts and 4 carries against Army. That translated into just 203 total yards of offense for him, 4 punts, 2 turnovers on down, an interception, and just 7 points. Whereas FIU looked absolutely competent against Indiana. A late touchdown by the Hoosiers helped them cover that number. And then last week, they played probably their best defensive performance in, let's call it 6 or 7 years. They go ahead and take the ball away from the Chippewas 6 times in a 52-16 blowout. And whereas Cam Fancher has to play hero ball, Keewan Jenkins has a really nice backfield behind him. They're not going to force him to throw it more than 30 times in this game. I think ideally, if they stay on script, he'll throw it close to 20 times. And for that reason, I'll go ahead and take the points. This is a rivalry game. FIU's playing well. FAU is headed in the opposite direction. And unless there's some kind of quarterback swap in this game that I'm not aware of, that I haven't seen coming, I think the wrong team is favored here. So I'll go ahead and take the points.
Yeah, the FAU, speaking of tricking people in week 1, they might have tricked people with playing Michigan State close. I had Michigan State that game. Michigan State driving inside the 10 to go up 20, throw a pick that swings that game. And the only offense FAU had the entire game was Cam Fancher drawing personal fouls on late slides. So let's hope that there's not too many of those today. I wish you luck down in the Panhandle. Before we get out of here, we do have to throw it back to Mr. Manziel one last time for his Hail Mary pick of the week. Started off with a bang with Vanderbilt pulling off the shocker against Virginia Tech. Not as much luck last week. Colorado did not get it done in Lincoln, but you're still up with a nice ROI for the season. These aren't easy to pick. Where are you going this weekend?
This week, I think I'm going with Tulane, Green Wave. Going against the Oklahoma team last week that really struggled against the Houston team that, we don't know how they're going to fare in the Big 12, but it's probably somewhere near the bottom. I think right now Tulane is top 35 and a lot of offensive, scoring offense, passing averages, and rushing production, and Oklahoma is at the bottom in a lot of their categories defensively. Last week, I didn't see a lot that inspired me from an Oklahoma team. Darian Mensah and this Tulane Green Wave passing attack a little bit, I think will come in here and get after Oklahoma a little bit. I like the Green Wave. It was almost one of my picks last week. They were in it until late against Kansas State and really played well. I expect them to take a little momentum into this and give Oklahoma some trouble this week.
Thanks, Johnny. Brett starts off the show with some love for some potential Tulane pulling off the upset. Johnny ends it with some more Tulane love. What could possibly go wrong? But that'll do it for us. Again, one final reminder, if you're watching on the Action Network YouTube channel, moving forward, this will just be on the new BBOC channel via YouTube. So make sure you subscribe there, hit that like button if you're watching. And also one final reminder, if you want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, moneyline, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code BBOC20 at sign up. One more time, that's BBOC20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you to Mike, Colin, and Brett. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow all of our picks on the award-winning Action Network app. Don't forget about the voicemail, 959-BAD-BEAT. Colin and I will be back on Monday morning with the recap episode. Mike and Mike, Group of 5, will be back with their preview midweek. Then Colin and I will preview the Week 4 slate late Thursday night. We'll do a portion of that live on our YouTube channel at 6 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy the slate today. Good luck on all of your bets. We'll see you next week, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Cheers.